you're watching this video, I guess it's the first movie in the series that you'll have watched. My name's Malcolm, I'm 59 years old, and in 2 months' time I'll be 60, and I'm going to run a marathon. I guess you'll be able to tell from my accent that I live in Scotland, which is a fantastic place. I live in a special part of Scotland. Edinburgh, which most people know, is about 20 miles that way. Dundee is about 20 miles that way, and St Andrews, the home of golf, is about 12 miles over my shoulder. Terrific place. Weather-wise, it never gets really hot here. It doesn't get really cold here. And in the course of a year, you maybe get 12 days where it's heavy rain. Otherwise, it's pretty nice. So when I was young, in my 20s, I used to run quite a lot. As a recreational runner, I entered quite a few half marathons, but I just enjoyed running. You know, I wouldn't describe myself as a racer. Then my family came along, and they had to take priority. And over the next 30 years, I became less fit. I put on a lot of weight. I became almost 100 kilos, which is about 200 pounds, something like that. I was on a maximum dose of blood pressure medication. I was almost being put onto cholesterol medication and all sorts of other medication. So 3 years ago I decided to take control, and I lost a third of my body weight. Blood pressure is now absolutely ideal. I've come off all my medication, got a clean bill of health, and if what you read is to be believed, I've added another 8 to 10 years onto my life expectancy. So that's absolutely fantastic, and it shows that if something is physically possible and you really want to do it, then you can. So as part of this weight loss regime, I went back to running. I used our National Health Service has a Couch to 5K programme. I used that, and from running 1 minute intervals in week 1, I entered my first 3-mile fun run in about week 8 or week 9, and what a tremendous experience that was. I would still describe myself as a recreational runner. I have entered quite a few races up to half marathon, but I'm happier just running on my own or with friends. So I'm a recreational runner. Distance wise, I'm most comfortable around about 10 to 12 kilometre, so that's about 6-7 miles, something like that. I don't often go beyond that. I can do, but I don't often go beyond that. Pace-wise, I do around about 5-minute kilometres, 8-minute miles. I can do a 5K in 23 minutes. I did that about a year ago. But I tend to be around about the 25. I'm not very good at pushing myself. So about 25 minutes is my general pace. 10K I can do about 50-55 minutes, something like that. So I'm not the fastest runner in my age group by any means, but I'm not the slowest either. I describe myself as a keen intermediate kind of runner. I run with Falkland Trail Runners. Through Falkland Estate. You'll have heard of Mary Queen of Scots. Falkland Palace, which still exists, was her hunting lodge, and all the Stuarts, and they would hunt deer in their estate. The estate is open to the public for free, and Falkland Trail Runners use that kind of 2 or 3 times a week. And it's an absolutely fantastic place to run. I also do a bit of road work with Leven Las Vegas. Nothing to do with Las Vegas in America, obviously, but Leven is a small seaside town, and if you stand on the beach at Leven, you can look across the Firth of Forth and see Edinburgh. It's another really nice place. Falkland Trail Runners put me through Jog Leader course about 6-7 months ago, and we set up a Couch to 5K programme that takes place in the estate. We've had 2 blocks so far, put about 50 people through the programme, of whom probably about 35 to 40 actually got to the end and became reasonably competent runners. so very proud of that. Those that get through the 5k, I have what I call a transition group, which takes them from 5k up to 10k. Once they reach 10k mark, then they're very competent runners, and they can work everything out from themselves from then on. So yeah, 2 months from now I'm going to be 60 years old, and 6 months almost to the day from recording this, I'm going to run a marathon. Myself and two other guys in my clubs, they have just turned 50, and none of the three of us have done a marathon before, and so that's what we're going to do to celebrate our milestones. I thought it would be cool to document the process. I've been looking for information about marathon training for older people, and there doesn't seem to be very much out there. I'm not saying that there is nothing, but I haven't been able to really find anything of substance. So I thought it would be really cool, both for myself to be able to reflect on that journey from 10, 12k up to 46k, 26 miles, and to provide it as a resource for other people who are getting on, but not quite decrepit yet. Yeah, I still think of myself as middle-aged. So lots of other people might get to my age and think, I'm not over the hill, I'm going to run a marathon. And if they can pick up some tips and techniques from this, then that would be absolutely fantastic. So the idea is that you can follow my progress, all the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, mostly the mundane. I think that's the truth. It is going to be mostly mundane. If I try to think about it, or tend to think about it in terms of a 10-mile race, you do the first mile and you've just started and full of energy and vigour, and you're ready for a great race. The last mile, you've got the finish line ahead of you, you get over the line and it's woo-ha, yeah, woo, we finished the race, and you're all excited and you get that rush. But between mile 2 and mile 9, it really is a case of plodding along and just putting one foot in front of the other, and yeah, it can be pretty boring. So I think most of this progress is also going to be mundane, but I don't want it to be boring at all. I think it can be interesting. Maybe not entertaining, but it can be interesting. I used to be a university lecturer, and I know how to research stuff, how to sort out what I think is bad advice from good advice, good technique from bad technique. Differentiate, I think, importantly between what would be good for somebody in their teens or early 20s and somebody in their late 50s into their 60s. I think these are two entirely different things. What works for an 18-year-old isn't going to work for me. What's appropriate for me isn't going to be necessarily appropriate for somebody in their early 30s. What's going to work for me might not work for you. All I can do is to say, here is a lot of stuff that I've tried. These things didn't work for me, these things did work for me. I found these things not to be very good, I found these things to be very good. If you try something that worked for me and it didn't work for you, that's not necessarily a negative. You've found something that didn't work for you, just like I'm going to find lots of things that don't work for me. And you can look at the other things, the things that didn't work for me might very well work for you. I'm sure I could have explained that a lot better, but I'm sure you absolutely understand what I mean. So the information that I'll give will be stuff that's worked for me. Medical information will be stuff that I think is appropriate for me. I would hate for anybody to come and sue my backside because I said such and such and it didn't work for you, or it was incorrect medical advice. I'm not a trained coach. Yes, I'm trained as a jog leader, but I'm not trained as an athletics coach. I have no medical qualifications. All I can do is to talk to you as a layman, which I guess most of you will be, and tell you what I found out, what I think worked for me, what didn't work for me, what I tried and worked, what I tried didn't work, what I tried and liked, what I tried and didn't like, and you can work all the rest out for yourself. So we're going to discover a lot of stuff, we're going to try out a lot of stuff, and hopefully come to a lot of conclusions. I think the biggest problems that I'm going to encounter potentially are injuries. So let me talk about injuries for a moment. I'm going to try my very, very best to avoid injuries. That's because I've had about 2 years where I've hardly had about 2 or 3 weeks without being injured. And I've now learned why that was. And I'm going to put that into practice during my marathon preparation and training. Essentially, it was this problem of listening to advice that applied to 20 and 30-year-olds and forgetting to adapt it to somebody who's in their late 50s. So I would get over an injury, I would start, doing some light training again, I would extend it, and I would get to a point where it felt absolutely fantastic, and that was me ready to take on the world again. 2 or 3 weeks later, bang, another injury. I'd been compensating for the original injury, which hadn't actually fully healed. It had healed to a certain extent, to the extent that I was no longer feeling the symptoms, but it just wasn't fully healed right to its root. Okay, so I'm going to bear that in mind. And in fact, if you remember the Couch to 5K program I mentioned, that was a real revelation. The week before that started, I didn't think I was going to be able to do even the 30-second reps because I had an Achilles tendon injury, and it was still quite significant. But I managed to do the 30-second reps. Then the minute reps, the 1.5 minutes, the 2 minutes, the 5, 10, 20, and got through to the end of the program. And by taking those 10, 12 weeks to let things build up gradually, to let the problem fully heal, everything has just been fine since then. I have had a couple of calf strains. I'm not going to tell you any lies or hold back the truth. I have had a couple of calf strains since then, but nothing that hasn't been sorted out within a couple of days, or a few days, week at the most, let's say. So yes, I'm going to try my hardest to avoid injuries, and we'll talk about and investigate ways to avoid injuries. And the program I'm going to follow isn't any of the ones that are published, because I think they tend to be for younger people. They tend to be kind of over 3 or 4 months. Mine is going to be over 6 months to give myself more time to build up gradually. So I'll build in stuff to try and avoid injuries. If, as I guess is inevitable, I do come across an injury or incur an injury, it'll be a case that I can look at that and say, what was it that happened that caused this injury? Again, the purpose is to try and help you avoid making the mistakes that I've made. How do I recover from this injury at 60 years old? I think that's going to be really interesting. Okay, so things where I changed my mind. I'm not going to go back and change the original content. I think that would be wrong to do that, because then we're changing the continuum. We're not saying this is, in week 3, this is what I think will be right, and in week 33 I discovered that was wrong. To go back and change week 3 to say this is what is right upsets everything. What I will do is, when I find something that I could have done differently, or would have done differently, or explained differently, or advice that was wrong, I'll go back to the original content and I'll put a bit in the contents, the comments rather section. And speaking of comments, I don't expect everybody to agree with everything that I do or say or recommend. So if you like what I'm doing, then give it a thumbs up. If you think I'm doing something wrong, then absolutely feel free to give it a thumbs down. I've got no objections to people criticising what I'm doing. But it would be wrong, I think, just to say that's a load of rubbish, without going into the comments section and saying, I've given it a thumbs down because what you said in this particular bit was absolutely wrong. So yeah, give me a thumbs down. But in the comments section, say this bit was wrong. What you should have said was, here is what I think the real story is. But even if you don't think anything is wrong, if you really love everything that you see, and I hope you will, still go to the comments section. No? It's down here or up there or wherever it is in your browser, and just drop in a comment saying, yeah, really like that, or ask questions. Perfectly happy to answer any questions that you have. And I will answer them truthfully. From my perspective as a keen, enthusiastic amateur. Okay, if you're a professional, then even better. Drop us a comment and say, okay, I know you looked at that bit of research, but there's been some new research in between times which modifies what we know. So absolutely everybody is welcome to participate in this. It's a 6-month journey. I hope you'll all come along for the ride. It's going to, as I say, have highs, lows, ups, downs. Most of it will probably be mundane, but I hope interesting mundane. You'll have guessed from this video alone that I'm not an entertainer. If I was an entertainer, I would be on the television making loads and loads of money. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not a comedian. I sometimes can tell a joke and people laugh, but I'm not a comedian. All I can say is that what I give you will come straight from the heart. I will not tell any lies. I will give you the truth as it comes. It won't be selective. You will get everything that I experience, and then you can make your own mind up about it. So, 6-month journey. I hope you will come along. I'm sure it will be interesting, even if it's not entertaining. At the end of the day, I'm really hoping that I can attract some people round about their late 50s, early 60s who can run 10k. So I'm not aiming at people who have never run before, people who are tremendously overweight. You need to do something else before you can start marathon training. But you can do it. I've shown that. You can do it, no matter how much overweight you are. You can make a change in your life. But if you can run 10k just now, then I'm convinced that you can run a marathon. You only have to say to yourself, not say to yourself, I might run a marathon, or I'll try to run a marathon. You just have to say, I will run a marathon. You can do it. I'm convinced of that. So I hope you'll come along for the ride, and 6 months from now, you too will be running your first marathon. So I hope you liked that. If you did like it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that you can get all the updates. It's going to be a heck of a 6 months. Look forward to it.